Once upon a time, nestled beside a shimmering, sleepy sea, lived a little girl named Mira. Her heart was as wide as the ocean, and her favorite pastime was collecting seashells, each one a tiny treasure from the deep. She had smooth, pearly ones, swirly, striped ones, and even tiny spotted ones, all lined up like a silent, sparkling choir on her windowsill. One evening, the sky put on a magnificent show. The wind howled a lullaby, and the waves danced a wild, frothy jig against the shore. Mira, tucked snugly in her bed, imagined the sea creatures having a grand adventure, swirling and twirling in the bubbly water. She dreamt of mermaids, riding seahorses, and starfish twinkling like fallen stars. The next morning, the world felt fresh and new, as if the night had washed away all worries. Mira, with her bright, curious eyes, tiptoed to the beach, eager to see what wonders the playful ocean might have left behind. The sand was soft and cool beneath her bare feet, still damp from the sea's secret kisses. As she strolled along, her gaze fell upon something truly extraordinary. There, half buried in the glistening sand, lay a shell unlike any she had ever seen. It shimmered with a soft, silver glow, as if a piece of the moon had tumbled into the sea and been polished by 1,000 gentle waves. It hummed ever so softly, a tiny, secret song, right there in her hand. Mira carefully picked it up, her fingers tracing its delicate, pearlescent curves. It felt warm, almost alive, and pulsed with a gentle, rhythmic beat. She held it close, her heart thumping with a mix of wonder and excitement. This was no ordinary shell. This was a whisper from the ocean's heart. When Mira held the silver shell to her ear, she didn't hear the usual whoosh and roar of the sea. Oh no! Instead, a tiny tinkling voice, like fairy bells ringing in the breeze, whispered a mysterious message. It was so soft, she almost thought she imagined it, but then it came again, clear as a dewdrop. "Find what was lost beneath the wave," it sang, its voice as gentle as a butterfly's wing. Mira blinked, her eyes wide with astonishment. "A talking shell?" she gasped, her voice barely a squeak. Her imagination, already as vast as the ocean, began to bubble with possibilities. The shell's whisper filled Mira with a thrilling sense of purpose. She felt like a brave explorer, embarking on a grand adventure right there on her familiar beach. The silver shell seemed to glow a little brighter, guiding her steps as she followed its soft, melodic hum. Every ripple in the sand, every piece of driftwood seemed to hold a clue. She peered under seaweed, peeked into tide pools, and even asked a friendly seagull if it had seen anything lost. The seagull just squawked, but Mira felt a tingle of magic in the air. The shell's whisper grew a little stronger, pulling her towards a cluster of dark, tangled seaweed near a rocky outcrop. As Mira drew closer, the whispering shell vibrated gently in her hand, like a tiny, excited heart. She carefully pushed aside the slippery green strands of seaweed, her eyes scanning for anything that might be lost. And there, caught in a messy knot, was a tiny, bright blue crab. Its little claws waved frantically, trying to free itself, but it was stuck fast. "Oh, you poor thing," Mira exclaimed, her heart filling with instant sympathy. "You're what was lost." The little crab looked up at her with big, worried eyes, its tiny antennae wiggling. It seemed to be asking for help, its small struggle a silent plea. Mira knew exactly what she had to do. Mira knelt down, her movements slow and careful, so as not to frighten her new, blue friend. She gently untangled the seaweed, strand by delicate strand, her fingers working with the precision of a tiny surgeon. The crab watched her, its eyes fixed on her kind face, its frantic wiggling slowly conning. It seemed to understand that she was there to help. Finally, with a soft tug, the last strand came free. The little blue crab wiggled its legs, stretched its claws, and then, with a happy scuttle, it was free. It looked up at Mira, its tiny crabby face seeming to beam with relief. Mira smiled, feeling a warm glow spread through her own heart. The little blue crab, now free and happy, bowed deeply, its tiny body bobbing up and down. "Thank you, brave friend," it chirped, its voice a surprising, tiny squeak. Then, with a flourish, it blew 3 shimmering, iridescent bubbles into the air. They floated upwards, catching the sunlight, each one a tiny rainbow. As the bubbles popped, a magical transformation began. The silver shell in Mira's hand glowed with an inner light brighter than any star. The silver swirled and danced, melting into a magnificent, radiant gold. It was as if the sun itself had decided to live inside the shell, making it sparkle with pure joy. The golden shell pulsed softly, and the tiny, tinkling voice whispered one last, beautiful message. "One kindness found is another created," it sang, its voice now filled with a gentle, knowing warmth. Then, with a final soft hum, the shell quieted forever, its magical task complete. It was no longer a talking shell, but a golden reminder. Mira held the golden shell close, feeling its warmth against her cheek. She knew this wasn't just a shell. It was a symbol, a memory of a magical day and a kind deed. She carefully carried it home, placing it in the most special spot on her windowsill, where it gleamed softly every night, a tiny golden moon. Whenever Mira felt a little sad, or perhaps a tiny bit lonely, she would hold her golden shell. She would close her eyes and listen, and though the shell no longer whispered words, she could hear the gentle echoes of the sea within it. She heard the soft lapping of waves, the happy chirps of the little blue crab, and the rustle of the seaweed. And sometimes, just sometimes, when the moon was high and the world was quiet, she would hear the faintest, most comforting voice, like a secret whispered on the wind. It would sing, "Kindness always finds its way home." Mira knew then that every kind act, no matter how small, sends ripples of warmth and happiness out into the world. Just like the waves of the sea, Mira learned that day that kindness is a powerful magic, more precious than any treasure. It doesn't need grand gestures or loud pronouncements. It simply needs a gentle heart and a willingness to help. The golden shell became her silent teacher, reminding her that even the smallest act of compassion can create the most beautiful transformations. From that day on, Mira looked for ways to be kind, just like the shell had taught her. She helped a lost kitten find its way home, shared her cookies with a friend, and always offered a comforting smile. She knew that every time she was kind, a little bit of that golden magic spread, making the world a brighter, happier place for everyone. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember Mira and her golden shell. Remember that your own heart holds a special kind of magic, the magic of kindness. Every gentle word, every helping hand, every warm smile you share creates a beautiful ripple in the world, just like the ocean's waves. Now, close your eyes, little one, and dream of golden shells and kind deeds. Let your heart be filled with the warmth of Mira's story, and know that your kindness, like the sea, will echo forever. Sweet dreams.